for a few more, and that's great too. I am so glad that you guys are called in, and I'm very hopeful that some of the things we have to talk about today are just good tips, good reminders, and maybe some things that may be new and useful to folks, especially now in the middle of all of these stressors that we're all dealing with. So I am Dr. Carla Allan. I am from Children's Mercy, and I work mostly in the ADHD clinic. But, you know, I had some time in training working with adults in cognitive behavioral therapy. And so I'm going to be kind of presenting a little slice about the lessons we can learn from cognitive behavioral therapy that apply to all of us that may be helpful to you all. And I see that Dr. Beck is there too. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, my name is Dr. Amy Beck. I'm also a pediatric psychologist at Children's Mercy, and I'm also trained as a yoga teacher. And so my primary work at Children's Mercy is working in our weight management program, so obesity medicine. But I am speaking with Dr. Allan tonight to bring some physiological yoga-based and breathing strategies to help our bodies calm down as well.
All right. So I'm going to kind of start off by leading us with some background and knowledge about cognitive behavioral strategies and how you can get some of them to work for you, even without being in cognitive behavioral therapy. The principles still hold true. And, you know, just as an aside, these kinds of things have been lifesavers for me. So, you know, the first time I was introduced to anything kind of cognitive behavioral, it sounded, I don't know, it sounded super sciencey, and you know, I was in graduate training at the time, and under, in a lot of ways, maybe more stress than I'd ever been in my whole life. You know, I had moved away from my family and my friends and my support network, and it certainly can be a recipe for depression when you're in that place and you want everyone to think that you're awesome and smart and that you belong there, but maybe you don't feel that way. When I started to learn a little bit about cognitive behavioral therapy, those principles to this day have saved my life. I believe that they have kept me from, you know, developing full-blown depression, or when I've certainly gotten there from times of grief and other things. It helps pull me back out. And so these principles, although they sound really simple, and they are, can make a world of difference in everybody's lives. So without further ado, I'll kind of start by explaining some of those principles. If I can get the slide to move, you know. Challenges. Okay, so in terms of one very simple way of explaining a lot of what you need to know about what cognitive behavioral therapy really is, there's an example of Joe and Mo here, and a picture of one of my favorite places to ride roller coasters, which is Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. I spent some time in Michigan growing up, and so my family would sometimes travel there. And so the story of Joe and Mo is one that I use all the time to explain these principles to kids, but the same concepts apply to adults too. So I'm going to kind of follow along here for a minute as I tell you a little story about Joe and Mo. So one day, two friends headed to an amusement park for some fun. In the center of the park was a huge roller coaster. When the boys saw the ride, something very strange happened. One boy, named Mo, ran to get in line and to ride the roller coaster. The other boy, Joe, walked much more slowly to get in line. As they stood together, they looked something like this. And so this is a part where I would love for you guys to participate. I'm going to ask a couple of questions to kind of lead us through this. Let's look at Mo. How do you guys think that Mo is feeling? I'm not sure if I'm able. All right, is everyone muted? Let me see. Let me check the chat. Very excited. Okay, so thank you. Yes, so Mo absolutely is looking very, very excited, and that's how he feels, right? And you're getting that from the nonverbal cues. You can look at his body. You can see that he's smiling. His body looks really excited. So that's how you probably arrived at that that answer. Now, if you look at Joe, how do you think that Joe is feeling? You can chat to answer. You can unmute yourself, whatever you want to do. Yes, thank you. So Joe, Catalin is saying, and I hope I'm saying her name right, but Catalin is saying that Joe looks scared and careful. And so I think you're right. Mo looks like he's feeling really excited about riding the roller coaster, but Joe looks really worried, nervous, or unhappy. So here's the interesting thing. Some people think that situations make them feel a certain way, like the roller coaster making Mo excited and making Joe scared. But if they're both in line for the same roller coaster, how could it be that they feel so differently? What could be making them feel differently about the exact same situation?
They're different people with different personalities.
Certainly. So they're different people with different personalities. Let's go a little bit more basic than that. Although you're definitely onto something. Personalities can influence this very thing that I'm talking about. What else might be different about what's going on inside their heads right now? What do you think that Mo's saying to himself while he's standing in line? And what's Joe saying to himself? Yeah, so, it's the case that thoughts may be very different inside those two heads. And it may be the case that Mo is thinking, this is going to be so much fun, it's going to be so exciting, but Joe might be thinking to himself instead that something really terrible is going to happen on this roller coaster. So it's interesting, right, that two people are experiencing the same situation but having very different thoughts about it and then very different feelings. And so if you, as a parent, for example, are in, these are your two kids, what are some things that you might tell Joe to help him feel more comfortable? Or if Joe is your friend, what would you tell him? I know participating is a little bit hard on this, right? So I think we would say something to him like you could whisper in his ear, hey, I'll sit next to you. I know you can handle it. Think of how proud you're going to feel when you're done, when the ride is over. And so that's a little bit about kind of what CBT tells you. CBT is all built on this idea that the way that we feel is very much influenced by the way that we think about things. And that sometimes the way we think about things can make our worlds a little smaller for us. Sometimes it can be helpful, and sometimes we need to make some adjustments, and sometimes we need support from someone to kind of help whisper in our ear that there are different ways to think about things. And so that's really at its core what CBT is all about. And so moving on to the next slide here. All right. So in essence, this is what the cognitive model really is. And what it tells you here is that situations certainly can elicit, they can bring out in us automatic thoughts, sort of quick mental shortcuts, ways of thinking about and figuring out if a situation is dangerous to you, if it's a great situation, those sorts of things. And in that, it can trigger for us reactions that are emotional and behavioral and physiological. And so really, in essence, what this tells us is that if there's something that that's not working for us in our lives, one of the best places to start working on that is by changing the way that we think about it. And so that's what we're going to spend a little bit of time today on. And so one of the things I want to ask you guys is if you've ever noticed that the things that you do influence how you feel. Like, for example, if you decide to go out in nature for a walk, or you watch your favorite sports team and they win, or you watch your favorite sports team and they lose. So, for better or for worse, certainly the cognitive model would predict that what we're doing influences how we're feeling. And so I want us to try out a little example. And so first, before I show you this little video, I want you internally to yourself to kind of think about what your mood is right now on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is the worst mood you've ever experienced and 10 is the happiest, best mood you've ever experienced. Go ahead and take a second internally to kind of rate where you are right now. Okay. So hold that number in mind, and I'm going to show you a little video of Hamlet the mini pig, if everything works out the way I hope that it will. And we'll come back to that in a minute. Yep, so pretty cute, right? Now, I want you to rate yourself on that same scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is the worst mood and 10 is the best. And I want to know if you feel a little bit better. Did you notice any change in your mood? Yeah. So, most of the time, and in fact, there's been a little study looking at people's moods very soon after a video just like that, and even that video. And what they found was that 98% of people having watched that felt that their mood moved up just a little bit. I think the vast majority was something like from 6 to 8. And so 2 points seems small, but in the scheme of things, after a 1-minute video with something really cute that you've not even had any experience with, it shows to you that these things can really make a difference. So, our mood matters, and the things that we do can really influence that in one way or another. So I want to talk now, about the impact of stress here. And, certainly it's the case that for many of us, our lives have been turned upside down by all of this. Our normal routines have been thrown out of whack. And for many of us, our normal social support networks are not there in the same way. And so for all of these reasons and others, stress is happening for all of us right now. And what we do changes how we feel in helpful, but also some hurtful ways. And when we're under stress or we experience setbacks, what happens is that our brains kind of go into like avoidance mode, which in essence means it's kind of there to protect us. It was adapted to be that way. It's what saved us from like being eaten by woolly mammoths and that kind of stuff. When we recognize danger, our brains just kind of shut down and they want to stay away from anything that might pose a threat to us. And so, that is a really important thing that can happen, and recognizing it is important too, because I'm going to talk a little bit about someone named Judy. Okay, so, Judy is a 38-year-old mother of 2 that, until recently, worked in her dream job as a writer in the marketing office. She loved her job, worked with her best friend, and was one of the strongest writers in the company. But when the market took a turn, however, Judy was let go from her job, but her best friend stayed on. Judy felt sick to her stomach when she got the news, like she'd been kicked right in the gut. And Judy also felt stupid for thinking that this would not happen to her. And since being let go, she hasn't had the energy or interest to do any of the things that she normally loves to do, like going for walks and playing with her children. She can't bring herself to talk to her best friend, who has tried to be supportive. And she often wonders, will I ever feel like myself again? This story kind of points out that, again, our brains have adapted to protect us from danger and through avoidance behaviors. And avoiding dangers can certainly keep us safe, but it doesn't really help us thrive. And especially when our brains get stuck in the avoidance mode, which is what's happened for Judy here. For Judy, it's caused problems like hiding out from her family and friends and not having the interest or energy to do the things that she loves. So if that story sounds familiar, it's probably for good reason. It's because all of us are susceptible to kind of getting stuck in that avoidance mode. And, you know, Judy's story certainly represents that of most of us. When setbacks like these happen, it's easy to fall into the anxiety and depression. And in fact, about 1 in 5 adults end up meeting criteria for a mental illness in any given year. And most of the time that is anxiety and depression. I would suspect that those numbers are larger now in the midst of what we're dealing with than under normal circumstances. So you can see here that in this negative mood spiral that there are situations where we just start avoiding things for too long, and because of that we withdraw or isolate and our mood gets worse. We feel sad, we feel more lonely, we feel hopeless, then we avoid more, and it just kind of becomes a vicious cycle. And so, you know, the more stress that you experience, the harder it gets to enjoy the things that you once loved. So that's one concept that we definitely know about and that cognitive behavioral therapy was uniquely designed to help us with. So the good news here, I know we've been a little bit talking doom and gloom, but the good news here, and it's great news actually, is that we can fix this. And we know a lot about how. And the great news is that the how part of it is actually pretty simple. There are at least three things that tend to work for most people, and they're pretty basic. The first is that it's important to connect with people that make you feel good. So people that you enjoy. You may not, when you're feeling kind of sad or depressed, or you find yourself in that anxious stress sort of cycle that we just showed on the page before that. When you feel that way, sometimes you don't feel like you're going to have the energy to do it, but starting small makes all the difference. And for most of us, we feel a lot better pretty quickly. Just like when we watch that video with the cute little pig, right? A 1-minute video can dramatically change our positive mood. So that's simple fix number one for helping with our mood, is reconnecting with people even though we don't feel like it, and people that make us feel good. The second one is about achieving goals that matter to you. They should be things internally that you care about. Doesn't matter if they're for anybody else. It's all about the things for you. And so, you know, for some people in the midst of this, it's about developing a new skill, or getting back into painting, or just something that mattered to them that was a goal. And it may be like, my goal is to paint a little bit on one painting every day, 15 minutes. That kind of stuff alone can really help to elevate our mood. And then the last very simple sort of fix that will work for all of us is enjoying activities on your own, giving you that sense of purpose and faith and connection in yourself again. And so that may be something like trying to start learning how to running, you know, go for a run on your own, or doing yoga. Those kinds of things can help gradually build up our self-esteem and get us out of that sort of negative spiral, the negative mood spiral that we talked about before. The key thing here, though, for translating this into any significant action to really help you get unstuck if you're really feeling stressed each day, the real deal is that we have to develop an action plan. And in cognitive behavioral therapy, we talk about that as the if-then kind of thing. So if I'm feeling, stressed and anxious, then here is what I'm going to do instead. And the development of these action plans isn't all that complicated, but they do require us to really think about ourselves and the barriers that are unique to us. So, as an example, I have goals for myself about writing more. And sometimes it's pretty easy for me to get distracted by my kids, or reading whatever the latest thing is in the news. And so for me to develop an action plan, I have to know, okay, when I feel like taking a break and watching the news, what can I do instead? I can take a minute and pick up something else to read. I can put my phone away from me so I'm not distracted by that too long when it's not a proper break time. Like, thinking through those roadblocks are everything. And so whether your goal to get out of a negative sort of mood spiral is to spend time with people, or to achieve a goal that matters to you, or to do something else that you enjoy on your own, action plans are the key to success, by helping us figure out how to overcome that barrier, the thing that's unique to us that gets in our way, and helping us understand what we're going to do instead of that, including things like what we call kind of like roadblock thoughts. So for example, this happens all the time to people, myself included, who want to start working out or exercising for the first time. And we wake up in the morning and we're just tired and we don't feel like it. And we think, this is too overwhelming, I can't do it. That's a roadblock thought. And so good cognitive behavioral therapy sort of action plans around that it will involve me recognizing that that's a pattern I have. It's an automatic thought that this is I'm feeling helpless, this is overwhelming, no thanks, I can't do it, it's impossible. And figuring out what kind of thing I can do to talk back to that thought, it's not hopeless, I can do this, and figuring out what I can do behaviorally to make it more in reach. So, instead of running 2 miles this morning, maybe I'll just start off walking around the block once. And if by then, at the end of that, I feel like running a little bit more, I'll do it. And whatever I do is good enough today. So it's those kinds of things that really matter in terms of the action plan. And I want to share with you a nice little resource that can help you take these things we've just talked about and put them into real practice. And it feels like a long video, but it summarizes all of the little pieces that are very important for you to develop action plans. And so the website is called Whoop, W-O-O-P, like it says up at the top. And there's an app for it too. I have no financial incentive or other connection with the developers of the Whoop app. But what I can tell you is that the people who developed this app and the website, they're researchers, they're psychologists, they're researchers, and they've been doing outcome work, looking at whether this stuff matters, this exact strategy they're going to talk about here. And it does. And in the last 20 years, they've been able to show that when you use these kind of action plans, it makes a difference whether you're trying to eat healthier foods, like more vegetables and less processed foods. It makes a difference whether you're someone who, you handicap yourself by staying up too late at night and then you're too tired the next morning to get to your work. So it's helped people create real action plans around bedtime procrastination. To, hey, I realize that my anger is getting in the way of my relationships with my family members. I want to improve on that. There's a whole little section on enhancing relationships too. And so this is real science-based stuff. It's not just a trendy little app. And I should mention, the app on the Apple Store, it's free. And so they don't get financial incentives for it either. It's just really solidly good work. And so let me play this video so you can kind of see a little bit more about what it's like, which might help you link what we've just talked about into your real life.
We're often told to
Oops, sorry.
think positive and rid ourselves of harmful negative self-talk.
Sorry.
However, research has shown that positive thinking doesn't work nearly as well as we're told. The more students positively envision themselves getting a job, the fewer job offers they received. The more college students envision successfully starting a romantic relationship, the less likely they got together with their crushee. The more hip replacement surgery patients imagine themselves having a smooth recovery, the less they were able to move their new joint. And the more positive overweight people's fantasies about their success of losing weight was, the fewer pounds they lost. Over 20 years, our research has revealed that just dreaming about a positive future saps energy needed to reach the positive future, predicts low physical and mental health, and predicts diminished well-being and poor personal development. But we can perform better if we combine the pleasurable task of envisioning the desired future with additional steps, acknowledging the obstacles we need to surmount, and planning exactly how we will overcome these obstacles. As an approach to behavior modification, this conscious four-step procedure, specifying a wish, specifying and imagining the best outcome, specifying and imagining the obstacles within ourselves, and forming a plan, strengthens mental associations in our minds without our awareness, predicting measurable increases in energy, and in turn, better performance. We call this method Whoop. To test Whoop, we gave a group of high school students preparing to take an important standardized test a short exercise incorporating Whoop, while a second group received a placebo. Students exposed to Whoop completed over 60% more practice questions than participants in the control group. In another study, we gave one group of middle-aged women information about the benefits of a healthy diet, and another group the same information plus Whoop. For a period of up to 2 years, the women who were taught WHOOP ate more fruits and vegetables than those in the information-only group. Other intervention studies have shown that people who use this method are losing weight, getting better grades, become successful negotiators, and improve their relationships. The magic of WHOOP is that by automating cognition, emotion, and behavior, it triggers people to become motivationally intelligent. It is low cost, easy to use, and can be applied to different life domains and across demographics. By learning and applying WHOOP, you will come away more motivated and skilled than ever to make clear decisions, take action, connect with others, and engage with the world. All from a simple but awakening question. What is it that holds you back from fulfilling your wish? For more information, visit whoopmylife.org.
Okay, so moving on. Stop.
Think positive and rid ourselves.
All right, so the point with that video is just to show you that there is something that you can use and take away from this right away that will help bring some of these principles to the forefront. And I have the app and I've used it, and when I use it, it helps you kind of deeply imagine this goal that you have in mind for yourself. Imagine how it would feel to achieve the goal. And then it also has you imagine what barriers are going to be there and how to problem solve their way around it. So it's not just about, as it mentions, positive thinking, because that alone won't do it for you. But that plus the action plan is everything. And so that's where I think Dr. Beck, I'm really excited to hear from her, because she's going to give you some examples, some exercises and breathing things that you can do that you can use as a part of your action plan. So if I'm feeling stressed or if I'm bummed out, you can choose to breathe. And so with that, I'm going to pass the mic off to Dr. Beck.
All right, hello. I'm gonna try and, okay. Hopefully everyone can see and hear me. And so thank you, Dr. Allan, for the great setup and information. And so what I would like to do for the last bit of time that we have together is give you some strategies that you, well, all of those things that have already been discussed you can use right now, but give you something that you can use right now with your body. So thinking about how we saw the pig video and had an improvement in mood just from a 1-minute video, the same thing can happen with feeling better and improving your mood by making changes with how you feel in your body right here and right now. And so specifically, we're going to be talking about breathing exercises or using the breath to help your body. And so these practices are helpful to just train your body overall to feel more calm and feel more relaxed. But they're also really great right in the moment of when you're feeling stressed. And so additionally, one of the things that's also coming out as beneficial from these breathing practices is in light of the actual pandemic virus of COVID-19, there is a lot more conversation and discussion about the benefit of regular breathing practices to help us be healthy if we were to contract the virus, knowing that the virus does also impact our lungs. So a lot of benefits from these breathing activities, but we're going to focus again on stress because that's why we're here today, right? That is one of the things that we're all dealing with. It might look different for each of us, but we all have a lot of stress going on because of the current pandemic situation. And so specifically thinking of those moments of acute stress or really intense stress in the moment that are driven by anxiety. So fear, worry, nervousness, right? The ambiguity of what's going on. Do I have the virus? Am I sick? Like, when are my kids going back to school? All these things, as well as anger. That frustration of, I've been furloughed. I don't have a way to pay for my bills. My X, Y, and Z is not wearing a mask. All of these things, right? Those two emotions can really contribute to acute stress or really intense stress in the moment. And so when we are experiencing extreme stress, our body automatically goes into what's called fight or flight, which normally I'd ask people to raise their hands if they've heard of that before, but I won't do that. It's also called an adrenaline rush. It's the same idea. And so you can think about this being an instinct by, Dr. Allan mentioned the woolly mammoth earlier, but say, using your imagination, you were in a room, maybe the room you're in right now, and a woolly mammoth or a large hungry tiger came rushing into the room, right? Like, what would you do? You'd probably
go to bed now.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm not trying to knock anything over.
Okay, good.
You're in here, you don't hear it. Oh, my bad.
and so if a large animal came in looking ferocious and hungry, you would probably try and get out of the way. Okay, but say you're in a room that you can't escape. So in that situation, you would probably try and fight. So maybe take the chair you're sitting in, use it, try to hit the animal over the head so you can get away and stay alive, so you don't become a snack for a large animal. And so I guarantee that none of us would have to Google what to do in that situation, right? We would automatically know what to do. It's instinct. It's how our bodies are designed to work to keep us alive, to keep us safe. And what our body does in that situation, that fight or flight response, our heart starts beating really fast. And our breath also starts to become a faster pace of breathing. And that breath gets really shallow. And then our blood starts to go from our core all the way down to our extremities, our hands and our legs. That allows us to run as fast as we possibly can or fight like we've never fought before. That's that adrenaline rush. Our eyesight, it narrows. So we're only able to focus on the threat at hand, which in this case is the animal that we're trying to run away from. But in other situations, right, it might be focused on the person who we're fighting with or the situation that we are stuck on and feeling really stressed or angry about. And the final part of our natural body reaction to this type of stress is our frontal lobes shut down. So the part of our brain that helps us plan and think clearly and make rational decisions, it goes offline for a period of time, and we're just reacting. And again, with an animal that's trying to eat us, this is necessary. It's how we stay alive. But when you're trying to do the things that are helpful for us to carry on successfully with our daily lives, thinking about the things that Dr. Allan was just talking about, having a shut down brain and only being able to focus on the thing that's scaring us or making us angry doesn't help. And so using the breath to feel better, but also reverse that natural adrenaline rush, right? One of the pieces is our breath gets really fast and shallow. So we want to use deep breathing to start to turn that process around. So we can turn our brain back on and think clearly and make the decisions that are going to help us, as well as feel better, okay? So to practice this, I'm going to scoot my chair back. Hopefully you can still hear me as I'm a little bit farther away. And so these are activities that can be done standing up or sitting down. I'm sitting right now. You can't see me in the chair, but the way that I am seated is I am up towards the edge of my chair. Not so far forward that I'm going to fall over, but I'm not just kind of using the backrest and chilling. I'm sitting up in a way that allows me to have good posture. So using my core muscles, sitting up nice and tall and straight, getting the top of my head as close to the ceiling as possible. And my feet are flat on the ground and my ankles are right underneath my bent knees. And my knees are bent at a 90-degree angle. And so to start to even have an idea of how we do this deep breathing correctly, we're going to take the palms of our hands and place them on our rib cage, because inside of our ribs are the things that help us breathe, which is our lungs, okay? And we're placing our hands on our rib cage because as we breathe, we want to really focus on expanding our lungs as much as possible, which we'll be able to tell because they're going to push into our rib cage and then we can feel that sensation in our hands. So this is just a way to test that we're breathing correctly. And so all of these breathing exercises are going to utilize open mouth breathing. And so when we practice them in day-to-day life, we don't have to do an open mouth breath, but when we're practicing where no one else can see us, and I can't see any of you, so hopefully you're practicing along with me and feel safe doing so, it really allows us to get the full benefit of that deep, deep breath. So with open mouths, we're going to slowly inhale and exhale. Okay, so everyone doing it with me, hopefully. Open your mouth and inhale. And as you're doing this, hopefully you can feel your lungs expanding into your hands. And I don't know if you can see mine expanding into my hands for that visual reference, but again, I want you to be able to feel it for yourself. We'll do one more deep breath like this. Good. So lowering your hands. And you might notice that when you're breathing with your mouth open, it's a lot noisier than when we are breathing with our mouth closed. And so another term of this breathing is called ocean breathing, because when there are a lot of people doing it in a room together, it actually sounds like the waves of the ocean, which I think is pretty cool. Okay, I'm gonna check the time. Okay, good, we got plenty of time. So now we're going to add on to that by adding an arm movement that allows us to create even more expansion or space in our lungs. So keeping the same seated posture, and if you started to kind of slump, make sure you put yourself back in that nice, strong core muscle, sitting up nice and tall and straight, your feet flat on the ground. And so place your hands at heart center. And we're going to pace our movements slowly with our slow, deep breath with our mouth open. So on the inhale, we're going to slowly open our arms out to the sides. And then on the exhale, we're going to slowly bring them back towards the center. And slower is better. And we are doing this because when our arms are outstretched, it gives our lungs even more space to breathe. So let's do 3 or 4 of these together. Open your mouth, inhale. Good. We'll do 3 more. I forgot to have you guys check in with how you were feeling before we got started. So take a moment to just check in with how you and your body are feeling right now. And now we'll do the next 2. Good. Go ahead and lower your hands. And hopefully you can hear me inhaling and exhaling as I breathe. I'm not quite sure how the microphone at this distance will pick that up. And so now we're going to add something called a grounding breath. And so this is really helpful. Again, we're talking about acute moments of stress. But specifically, sometimes we can get so stressed, so overwhelmed, so dysregulated that we don't even feel like we're in reality anymore. Just kind of like we're in that spiraling out of control, like Dr. Allan was talking about earlier. And so in those situations, we want to be able to ground ourselves to the present moment. So bringing ourselves back from wherever our brain has taken us, or if we have a history of trauma, any flashbacks that we might be having, and bring us into the present moment where our life currently is. And so to practice this grounding breath, I'm going to back up even more because my arms are really long. So I want you to be able to see my hand movements as much as possible. And so we're maintaining the same posture in the chair. So again, knees bent, ankles under our knees, sitting up nice and tall and straight. And so just with our hands placed on our lap, on again that open mouth inhale, we're going to slowly bring our arms over our head, although not directly over, but a little bit in front. So you can look up and see your hands. And note that I'm making a diamond shape with my arms. So all of this motion is on the inhale. And then on the exhale, we're going to push, using strong, so my arms are activated, my muscles are working. I'm going to push slowly down as we exhale slowly with an open mouth, until we inhale again and repeat the same pattern. And so what this is doing, why this is called grounding, is we are actually pushing ourselves physically into the ground, pushing ourselves into this present moment where we currently are. So let's practice. We've got time to do 4 of these, so let's practice these together. Sitting up nice and tall and straight. Open your mouths. Inhale. Exhale. That's 1. Do it again. Inhale. Exhale. Again, inhale. Exhale. Last one. Inhale. Exhale. Good. One thing to add is you may notice that my inhales and exhales are fairly long. And so it is absolutely expected that your inhales and exhales at this point, if you're new to these practices, would be shorter. I've been doing this type of breathing for a really long time. So my lungs have gotten used to being able to hold my breaths and my inhales and my exhales longer. I will say though, just speaking personally, referencing what I mentioned earlier in terms of more people talking about these type of exercises is also being beneficial with the actual COVID, the coronavirus. I myself did have the virus in mid-March. It was awful, but I never had any breathing problems. I never coughed, nor did I ever experience shortness of breath. And before anyone else was talking about breath and practicing these breathing exercises as part of potentially maintaining health with this virus, I immediately attributed my lack of any breath challenges to the fact that I've been practicing these breathing activities for, so many years. So again, one person is anecdotal, but we're still learning so much about this virus, and I think it makes a lot of sense. So if you needed any more motivation to practice these exercises, may that be a current one. So finally, I've saved my favorite one for the end, the best for last. And so this is something called fountain breath. And this is one, side note, all of these breathing exercises are great for kids as well. I teach them to our patients as well as parents in our weight management program. But this last one in particular, kids really love because it looks ridiculous and it feels silly. So I always like to put that out at the beginning. You're gonna laugh at me when I show it to you. It's totally cool, it's fine. But you're going to appreciate it when you get a chance to practice it too. And so this one is the only one that I can't do sitting down. So I'm going to stand up and hopefully you can still see as much of me as possible. And, I'm going to squat so you can still see my face for right now. All of the other activities that we have, breathing exercises that we've done so far, I've done seated because you can do them all in a chair, but they all can also be practiced while standing. And so that standing posture for all of the exercises that we've done so far is this one, which is you start standing up straight and then you place your feet about 3 feet apart from each other. I know you can't see my feet, but they are about 3 feet away from each other. And so with that distance between your feet, you want to bend your knees slightly. Now we're not trying to do a deep squat. It's just a slight bend. If when you bend slightly with your toes facing forward, if that hurts your knees, you can turn your toes out to the side a little bit. That feels better on my knees, and it does for many other people as well. And so the fountain breath is, I'm going to show it to you first. You can laugh at me, and then I'll tell you why it's helpful. So with our knees bent slightly, starting with our hands at the top of our legs, with our palms facing upwards, open mouth, inhale slowly till we get to heart center. Then we stop, turn our hands, and then on a giant exhale, we'll let our arms go. And again, you probably can't see my arms because I'm super tall, but what they did was like that, okay? And so why this is beneficial is for two reasons. One, we can add imagery to it. So using our imagination to enhance the experience of this breathing practice. Specifically, while we are inhaling and bringing our hands up, that is a time to imagine that you're scooping up whatever stress or anxiety or whatever thing happened that you wish you didn't have to deal with or you just wish were out of your life. You are scooping it up. And then when you exhale and let your arms fly like a fountain, you can imagine yourself letting it go. So imagery is a very powerful tool in and of itself, but we're adding it with the experience of changing the way our body feels. So that's one way that this pose is very helpful. And then secondly, it looks ridiculous and you sometimes feel silly while doing it. And when we are laughing, when we're having that positive emotion, we can't have that experience of acute stress at the same time. So it's another way to help us feel better. Again, much like the pig video. Okay, so we're gonna practice this together. So getting back to our stance, so our feet are about 3 feet apart. I'm gonna turn my toes out to the side slightly and bend my knees a little bit. And so starting with palms facing up at the top of our legs, open mouth, inhale. Pause, turn, you're gonna exhale and let it go. All right, so let's do 3 more of these together and go ahead and add your imagery. So imagine whatever it is that you don't want, you're scooping it up and getting it out of your life. All right, inhale. Pause, turn, let it go. Two more. Last one. Make it worth it. Okay. So those were some breathing exercises that hopefully you and your kids can give a whirl. You can try, again, for all the benefits that we've talked about today. And so I hope that checking in with yourself now, you've noticed a difference, maybe feel a little bit better. I do. I love the fountain breath in particular. And so the more that we practice these, the better we are at using them. And it helps us overall feel less stressed and less overwhelmed, but they're also really great strategies to use in those moments of acute stress when we need to calm down that fight or flight reaction and turn our brain on so we can make the best choice, make the best decision. So with that, I'm going to, hopefully Dr. Allan is still.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Excellent.
Oh my gosh, Dr. Beck, thank you for that. It's fun, and I do think that crick in my neck that I was complaining about earlier is a little softer now. So thank you for that. Yeah, so I'm trying to figure out kind of how to make it work, but if you all who are participating have questions for me or for Dr. Beck, we are happy to spend the next 10 minutes or so doing our best to answer them for you. I think to summarize, it is our hope that today we've been able to give you ideas for wrangling your mind, which can go kind of wild on us sometimes and get stuck in places that aren't helpful, and also strategies for getting your body to feel calm and present in this current moment. And so thank you for that. All right, I'm going to try to open up the chat feature, and certainly if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question too, that way would be just fine. We'll give a couple minutes to do that and go from there.
I will also add that when practicing the breathing exercises, if you found yourself yawning, that's also normal. That does go away the more that you practice. So just we are often not used to breathing that deeply. And so getting that much oxygen in is part of why we might be yawning when trying these out for the first time, or for several times actually.
It is funny what a difference your body, you know, the experience that your body has when you breathe deeply for the first time. And most of the time we go around in our lives probably only filling our lungs, I don't know, maybe a third full if we're lucky.
Yeah.
So it's great for lifting mood and improving how our muscles and everything feels.
Yeah.
So, you know, certainly it's the case that if people don't have any questions, that's just fine too, but we wanted to kind of honor where you guys are tonight. And so maybe we'll give a little bit more time if someone is feeling shy to kind of be. It's a quiet group. Okay. Well, we're so glad that you all took the time to join us. Thank you for being with us tonight, and we hope that you found it to be useful. And so I'm fairly certain from what I know from Dr. Steppe, who helps run everything, that this will be available, recorded from their website. And so thank you all, and we hope that you have a great night. Thank you, Dr. Beck.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.